Hey guys, this week I'm going to be talking about my favorite plant, my million hearts, also known as Dischidia ruscifolia. It's variant variegata. It's a super cute succulent. It's very easily recognizable by its heart-shaped leaves. It's very popular right now. I came across this plant last February at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show, and I think that was actually the last big social outing I had before the pandemic response started. So I got my million hearts in just a little 2-inch pot, and in the last 10 months it has grown several times larger than when I got it. These plants do really well in hanging pots because they can get up to a whole meter in length. The plant I got was actually just a few cuttings stuck in a pot, and this plant propagates super easily actually. I took a few cuttings for my friend and they were in the mail for about a week, and the temperature was only probably 30 to 45 degrees, which is lower than is recommended for this plant. It does better in the normal range of like 60 to 80. But it did fine in the mail. It made it to him just fine. There's no worry of it drying out because it's a succulent. But I did find out when you cut it, it excretes this milky sap, and you want to be careful with this. It's not harmful, but if you have sensitive skin like me, it can be slightly irritating. Dischidia ruscifolia have heart-shaped leaves, which are unique to this species. They're thick when watered regularly, and they have an epicuticular wax coating on them, which is common in a lot of succulents. This is a hydrophobic coating that kind of acts as the plant's sunscreen. So it's important for growth because it protects the plant from UV rays. And while it might be satisfying and easy to wipe off the epicuticular wax, I recommend that you don't, because it will not come back once it's gone, and it's important for protecting the plant from sunlight if you're giving it any direct sun, as well as adding to the color of the plant. It has a whitish film that oftentimes makes the color of the plant really unique. And I like all my plants better with the epicuticular wax on it. And a word of caution, certain pest treatments like neem oil will actually dissolve and wash off the wax. And unfortunately, I learned this the hard way. And once it's gone, it's gone. My million hearts is variegated, which means instead of the usual darker green color of the plant, it is a light green with white. And it ranges from fully light green leaves to fully white leaves. Most leaves are light green with white edges on them. And from the high amount of light I'm giving mine, some of the leaves are blushing a pink color. Dischidia ruscifolia have small white bell-shaped flowers. These are super cute to match the heart-shaped leaves. And even though they're really small, they do actually have quite a strong fragrance, but it is quite pleasant, and I loved when mine was blooming. Unfortunately, I couldn't find much about the morphology of the flowers on this plant, and I can't look at it for myself because it is no longer blooming, and I didn't take the time to look closely at these flowers, and I'm not sure I would have actually been able to find out much about them because they are so small. I probably wouldn't have been able to pick out any distinctive structures on it. Dischidia ruscifolia is native to the Philippines and is part of the genus Dischidia, which is native to Southeast Asia and Indonesia. Dischidia are epiphytic plants, which means they grow on tree trunks or branches. And Dischidia ruscifolia specifically is oftentimes found on arboreal ant nests. Knowing a plant's native environment can be pretty helpful to providing the proper indoor care for the plant. So, as a tropical plant, Million Hearts actually prefer higher humidity than the average succulent. However, I do keep mine on my succulent shelf with just average room humidity, and it does just fine. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if you want to make sure it does well, I recommend just a daily misting at least. As a succulent and epiphyte, Million Hearts don't need much water. The soil should fully dry out between waterings. And great thing about this plant, it makes watering super easy because it'll tell you when it needs to be watered. Once it's dried out enough, the lower leaves on your Million Hearts will start to wrinkle. And this is when you want to water it. And you want to do it as soon as possible once you notice this, because as you can see on my plant, there are patches with 1 to 3 nodes without leaves. And this is because I went about a week without watering it after I had noticed the wrinkling. And this stunted the growth on the plant. So while it kept getting longer, it didn't grow any leaves. Like I mentioned, these plants grow on trees usually, so they like a well-draining soil when grown indoors. I just use my typical succulent mix, which is half succulent soil and half perlite. However, when propagating cuttings of Million Hearts, it will do fine in moist soil or sphagnum moss, as well as water. Dischidia don't require as much light as other succulents, so it'll be fine in east or west facing window, although you want to avoid direct sunlight as it might damage the plant. Under a grow light, it would be fine with about 8 to 10 hours of light a day. However, I keep it on my succulent shelf where it gets 11 to 13 hours of light a day. This is because I want to maintain its variegation to the fullest and get the full extent of colors possible on here, from light green to white to pink. Variegated plants, when they're not getting enough light, will start reverting back to their normal green color. So any variegated plants I have, I always make sure that they're getting more than enough light so I can get really beautiful patterns on them. Million Hearts don't need much fertilizer, so I only give mine diluted fertilizer every 1 to 2 months, and it does fine on that. This is a fantastic plant. Really cool looking, cute, really pretty too. I really love this plant. I'm super happy that I came across it. It was just this lone plant on the bottom shelf at this one plant stand. and I almost didn't get it because it was one of the more expensive plants, and I had already blown way too much money there. I always go there with a budget, and I go over. It's just how it works. Can't be surrounded by that many plants and not go crazy. But I ended up snagging it, and I'm super happy it did. Super easy to take care of. It'll get quite big, especially once growing season starts. I can't wait to see it take off. I will probably have to move it, get it its own hanging pot so it can just go wild. Because I don't plan on pruning it at all. I want it to get as big as possible. The only pruning I will be doing is to take cuttings if my friends want to propagate it. Because this is a cool plant and I don't want to keep it to myself. And I can't wait to see where it goes. I'll probably give updates on it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed a little info session. And I hope to see you next week. I'm sorry.